Okay, we're back. So as you all know, tomorrow is the presentation. Just wait and see who's running, who's on, what's active, what's not. YouTube check, Facebook check, live, Instagram. I'm hoping we're live here. You'll notice the camera position's a little bit different on Instagram. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so tomorrow at 6:30 is the presentation. You can see me live on Instagram. So you're gonna go to AccuHealth and J. We're gonna be streaming live on Facebook through Nature's Corner. So if you're on Facebook, then you wanna go to Nature's Corner. Also check the feed, I put a link in there. It'll tell you all everything you need to know about where to go and where to sign up and view. So look at the Eventbrite invitation and that should tell you what to do. But no, around 6:30, somewhere on Facebook and Instagram, you'll find this whole lecture in its entirety. But we'll start from the history. We'll talk about who, how, and what. And today we're going to start with a little review. Okay, so we talked about genes. We looked at where they are on the genome. Okay, that's genetics. Genomics is how those genes turn on and off. And then epigenetics is what turns those genes on and off. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about how. Okay, remember we talked about the structure of the DNA molecule and that there's something on there called histones. Histones don't provide any sort of genetic material, but they're kind of like the backbone of a DNA strand, right? And what we said in review is what they do is that they wind up the chromatin, which is the actual strand of DNA, and package it up small enough so that it fits inside the nucleus of a cell in order to tell that cell what to do. So whether it's a muscle cell, an eye color cell, a hair cell color, all these obvious skin color, right, epidermal layer and the amount of melanin they produce is our skin tone. All these characteristics are in the DNA code in the nucleus of that cell, okay? But that chromosome or that chromatin has been wrapped up around histones. And why are histones important, right? So histones are like a spool, right? We wind and wind the DNA strand molecule around it to get a small, but why are they important? Why are we bringing them up? Well, this is the how, right? How do we turn the genes on and off? How do we turn off the bad genes for the big three, diabetes, cancer, and heart disease? And how do we turn on the genes for longevity, like the blue zone genes? Well, we know that blue zone is very isolated culture and they eat specific type of foods that contribute and help. So we know that somehow those genes are being turned on. And then we know that also bad genes are turned on by bad habits. So that is where it happens on the histone. The histone actually has what we call a chemical reaction. There's different ways. The big main one that it's a big word, but if you'll hear it coming down is methylation, right? A methyl group on the DNA molecule has a chemical reaction which then turns on or turns off a certain gene. So think of the histones and epigenomics like a switch, right? So the easiest way to think about it is how do I turn the good genes on and turn the bad genes off? And that is epigenomics at the core, at the heart, at the level of it. And the way that happens is through methylation. There's also deacetylation. Those are the top two. You'll hear those a lot, but the big workhorse is methylation. Okay, and what happens is a chemical reaction. It's called the methyltransferase, and methylation is a chemical reaction in which that activates that gene. But why is that important? Because through that, once we understand the chemistry and how it influences, then we know how to turn the genes on and off. That's how we know the switches. So what is the goal here? How do they turn on? Well, one of the things that I've kind of delved deeply into was, I was looking at the effects of acupuncture and how it works and how it helps. And one of the things that came up is a substance, an enzyme called a sirtuin, right? I'll say it again in a New Yorker, a sirtuin, right? A sirtuin is released by the SIRT gene. Thanks for joining. It's released by the SIRT gene. There's 7 SIRT genes, and each one's relieved SIRT. The enzyme is SIRT 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They go up to 7. And why is it important? So the research that's been done is that sirtuins have been shown to be sort of like a quote-unquote fountain of youth. What are they responsible for? So these chemicals, these enzymes are released in order to preserve cells in the times of stress, and they're activated by stress. Okay, and the big stressor that everybody's talking about that activates these genes is calorie restriction. Right, in times of starvation, our ancient ancestors and our primitive ancestors had to preserve, had to work on little fuel. And the way that happened is that sirtuins would release, and it would help preserve the life of cells to keep them on longer instead of breaking down and wasting away. So we know that sirtuins actually help in a good way. So one way we can say is that epigenetically, the release. Okay, sorry, let's backtrack. Epigenomically, the release of sirtuin 1, 2 through 7 has an epigenetic effect on the genome. In other words, once we release these enzymes, these substances, they help preserve our genomes. And one way is producing better histones and better cell structure. So we know, and not only that, but it also helps slow down decay. As you know, as we get older, as we age and we grow, in our youth, we produce lots and lots of cells, and we grow and grow and grow. In middle age, we kind of hit the button. But then as we get older, we start to lose more than we gain, and that's basically programmed cell death called apoptosis. We know that sirtuins actually slow that down, prevent that, and preserve the body, but also at the same time, help produce better cells. Okay, so that's a 2-for-1 right there. And why are they important? Because that's really what everybody's talking about. And that's what's going to be kind of the focus of the talk tomorrow, is we're going to talk about these ideas. There's this concept out there of blue zone, healthy diets, good foods. These foods, also known as SIRT foods, mimic the effect of, calorie restriction, right? Intermittent fasting, which we know is actually good for the body, especially as we get older, we need and require less and less calories. So when we give our body less, it's forced to do more. And we can not, instead of calorie restriction starving ourselves, we can supplement with these foods that actually kind of mimic the effects of starvation, but at the same time are very nutritious. So we'll go over that list. It's way too long to go over today, but we will go over that tomorrow. That's going to be the core of the lecture, if you can sit through that. But getting back to the discussion at hand is that we know through the effects of acupuncture, which is a minor stressor, it releases what's called nitric oxide. Okay, nitric oxide, if you don't know, is given to heart patients when they have congestive heart failure. It opens up the blood vessels and brings blood flow to the heart directly. I think a lot of bodybuilders use it too, to kind of bulk up and get blood flow to the muscles when they work out and help repair over time. But the thing that I was able to kind of reverse engineer through research and studies out there is that we know when we introduce the filament, it releases nitric oxide. And in response to that, it will release nitric oxide synthase. So you can't deplete yourself of nitric oxide. It's inherent in your body, but it is, there are some precursors that help build it, and that's called ENOS and NNOS, and that's called nitric oxide synthase. So as you use a nitric oxide, you produce nitric oxide synthase, and that is what triggers the release of sirtuins. And we have seen that time and time again in multiple studies, especially in the big 3, okay, at least the 2. I've seen research to show that you doing acupuncture will release sirtuins to help with insulin resistance and diabetes, and it also helps reduce hypertensive state, right? So hypertensive state is when the vessels of the blood don't expand and create high blood pressure. Okay, that's what hypertension is. That's what high blood pressure is. It's something around what we don't realize is that around the walls of arteries are muscles, and those muscles are supposed to loosen and slack in order to provide, blood pressure, high and low blood pressure. So in the time of need, we need more blood. We raise our blood pressure. When we're time of relaxing, we need to take the pressure off and reduce blood pressure. But sometimes in today's society with stress, we are constantly, stuck on. And what happens in hypertension, those blood vessels stay tight and stuck. But what we see is that with the release of sirtuins, is that it actually kind of helps soften that muscle. Right, and that's why sirtuins are very, very important. And we now know that acupuncture can actually help release those. So as we talk about and discuss, and we'll talk about a little bit more tomorrow, is that if we know that sirtuins are good for us and we want to release them, and we know that acupuncture helps, then we want to get acupuncture in order to sort of turn the good genes on and the bad genes off. Okay, so with that being said, tomorrow we're going to hit a whole list of these foods. Look for terms like, terms of Mediterranean diets. Well, we're going to expand that term and we're going to call it Mediterranean. We're going to find the high frequency foods that are eaten in the blue zone diets that contribute to that mimic the effects of calorie restriction, which are stressful, right? Which then trigger the release of sirtuins, which then, preserve the cells that we have and help build better cells, right? Literally the fountain of youth right there. If you're listening and you can put this together, is that if we kind of control the depletion of cells and we create better cells, then we're basically regenerating and hold on to what we have. And that is the baseline of sirtuins. And how does that happen? It happens epigenomically, right? Through methylation, deacetylation, by, epigenomically adding certain environmental factors like acupuncture and the right foods and the right lifestyle. So even acupuncture, even exercise has an epigenetic effect to turn good genes on and off. Living by a nuclear power plant has an epigenetic effect to turn bad genes on, right? Your crappy processed food diet, fast food and boxed rice-a-roni type foods contribute to turning on the bad genes. Sitting, sedentary lifestyle contributes, right? So why are we talking about this? I think this is a very good roadmap to the future of health, right? So let's not wait till stage 4 cancer blows up in our face. Let's not wait till we have the heart attack. Let's not wait till we're injecting or we're on medication for diabetes, right? Let's do a genomic test, right? Let's pick a trait. Let's pick a gene like high blood pressure or cardiovascular disease or cancer, diabetes. That is our trait. That is our genetic trait. Let's find it on the genome with a genomic report. That's genomics, right? Let's do a little bit of research and find out how those genes turn on and off. That's epigenomics. And then let's figure out what turns those genes on and off, and that's epigenetics. I hope I'm going to leave you with that little sort of formula right there. I hope that statement sort of sums up what I've been talking about for the past 4 lectures. I really hope that you tune in tomorrow and see what we're talking about and see what kind of foods we can incorporate into our diets that basically, mimic the effect without starving us, right? If we can trick the body into thinking that it's hungry and starving without going into caloric depletion or nutritional depletion. Here, I'm going to state that again, right? We are not starving ourselves, right? We want to get all our vitamins and minerals, but we also want to eat the right foods that turn the good genes on and the bad genes off, right? That's what epigenetics is, right? Environmental factors that turn the bad genes on and off epigenomically on our genome. So who, us, how, epigenomics, and what, epigenetics. Thank you for listening, and I hope you tune in tomorrow night at 6:30. Thank you.